Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Cotunquit Chronicles, which has been broadcast and developed here in the island of Cotunquit in our studio. We acknowledge the custodians of the land where we are broadcasting from today, including the Narragansett Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I'm your host, James Allen, and I'm joined here most weeks, and this week by the extraordinary adventurer, extreme sport enthusiast, and all-around great gal, Ashlyn Komorick. Hello, and we are here once again for another episode of Cotunquit Chronicles. And today, Ashlyn Komorick and myself, James Allen, are visited here by Ellen Serenity. And my first thought, hi, Ellen.
Hi, Jay.
Yes, yeah. So, Serenity. Now, here we are. We have Serenity now. Wonderful line from a famous television show. But I'm so pleased that you're here today. We're going to talk about Flotsam and Jetsam, the things that find their way to the shoreline here in our beautiful town of Cotunquit and other islands in the hemisphere here and all across the world. Recently, a bottle was found from early 1900s, and someone found a bottle with a message in it. Recently.
On Cotunquit?
It was close by.
Oh, and there was a message.
It was a message.
I didn't hear about this.
And I don't know what it said. But I think it was a personal note. It was a personal note. It was someone that was in the war, and I believe it was the First World War, that was trying to send a message home.
Wow.
And it made it. But probably...
But many years later.
Yeah, many years later. So, have you had the occasion to find anything on these shores?
Well, I have never found a bottle with a note in it, but I found lots of things.
Yes, well, what were they? In your experience, did you find something that was particularly interesting that I could make fun of? I mean, we could have some laughs about. I mean, or
well,
interesting.
Do you want something organic or man-made? Something natural?
It's entirely up to you. This is a very open show. This is not a visual medium, however. I see you're digging around for something.
Okay, well, I've got an old tin with a picture, I think, of the Titanic on it that I picked up at a yard sale on the island. And this is something that I found in Martin Hollow.
Oh, nice.
But I think so. It's a fork that's been beaten up, but it hasn't. The tines aren't broken off. It's really, really thin, and the waves have left the stem and the handle relatively straight. It curls in a very charming way at the bottom. But the tines are folded up like Celtic knotwork. I was so excited.
True.
And it's got a beautiful patina.
I'm holding it right now, and you can't see that. But it is like holding something from the very early era of this country.
It's so thin.
Yes, and it's made of brass, I believe. Or would that be copper?
I don't know. I should bring it to the Historical Society to find out, because I don't know anything about it. I just thought, oh, that's cool.
That is really cool.
That is nice. So this is something that you found.
So that that's probably, I don't know. That could have come from a house, right?
It's $20,000.
Or
going away.
Or it could be Flotsam or Jetsam. Do we know the difference between Flotsam and Jetsam?
I'm hoping you do. I know that Jetsam is more likely to fly into the sky.
Well, so Jetsam is when people cast things off. So like smugglers who have to toss things overboard quickly, that would be Jetsam. And Flotsam is when, the ship breaks up and things.
So it's unintentional.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
So if.
Of course, sometimes the smugglers will toss it intentionally if they're being pursued.
Yeah, then that becomes Jetsam. That's Jetsam because they jettisoned it.
Ah, nice. Good research. Did you research that or did you just know it?
I did know it because I looked it up many years ago because I was curious.
We do have a rule about research. We don't do any. But anyway, so you have more things in that little
I have all kinds of
bucket?
things. So this, I found, what is that?
It's a plastic, ancient plastic.
That's a container. I'm just trying to think. So right here, there's a
At the fort.
At the fort. I was on the phone to my brother walking up and down the beach, and there was a nice short chop that was pretty steep. So if you're a beachcomber, you know what you want are short interval waves because that'll throw stuff up on the shore. They don't have to be huge, but the long, long, long ones, everything has time to settle out and just get sand. And this was cold weather, and this was flipped up onto my hiking boot.
Oh.
So it's a spear point.
It is.
And it's actually made of flint, which is not something we find a lot of here. So that would have been traded. So I'm assuming, the Narragansetts apparently came here, and this was one of their summer camps. But it's very clearly a spear point and artifact, but the waves have worn it smooth. So you've lost all the little conchoidal fracture chips.
The deadly part of it.
Yeah.
But that is really lovely. I like seeing them passing it now to Ashland, and she's working on that.
Yeah, that's really cool, Ella.
She's smoothing it out.
Well, especially the way, I was like, it wasn't any brilliance. I had hiking boots on, and the wave flipped it under the toe of my boot, and I looked down and said, "Oh my God, that looks like an arrowhead." So.
I look and I look and I look and I look, but I don't find any. So I went to see my brother-in-law, and his father lived before he passed over in that was that where all the boats are down in South Kingstown, where the police station used to be. Here I'm talking about things that used to be there. It's right on the water. As you're passing on Route 1 in South Kingstown, you'll see there's a boatyard on the left. So anyway, Plum, I don't know what it's called over there, some kind of point. And he had owned a home in there, and he was digging around, and he found hundreds of these things. Must have been where they created these shards. So he had a whole tub full. But I didn't, he offered me, and I didn't take any because I'm still looking.
Yeah, well, I actually lived for a while out in Flagstaff, Arizona, and there are places out there in the forest, because there's no soil there, and there's no moisture, so things don't decompose. So there'd be all different kinds of pottery shards.
Let me back up. There's something that you suggested that in Arizona there are forests. That seems incongruous to me. Everything there seemed to be that was living had died. There was no water there. They don't have water in there. So.
They don't have much, but Coconino National Forest is the largest continuous forest in the lower 48. Ponderosa pines, okay. Ponderosa pines, and when they haven't done fire suppression, they're like 50 feet apart. So there's not a lot of water, and the area is suffering because of it's a mega drought. To do a big digression from the beach, you can assess how wet things are out there, like by looking at the kind of trees you have, and they have something called the PJ ratio that doesn't have anything to do with sandwiches for lunch. It's pinyon pines and juniper trees, and depending on the ratio, because the pines require more water than the junipers do. Junipers are very tough, but there are different species of junipers. So I was told when I moved out there that the pine trees are dying from drought. The old timers now fret, but when the juniper trees die, they get anxious. Well, there's a species out there called the alligator juniper that get to be 800 years old, and with this mega drought, they're dying. So, yeah, it's rough.
I'm sorry to hear that. So, I found some things as I've passed along on the shore, and also floating as I'm riding along in my boat, over the years. And oftentimes after big storms, I'll find oyster bags, and they'll be floating with their gear. There's no markings on it whatsoever, so that you don't know who
can't give it back to them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice if the oysters are all of size, particularly if you're a fisherman, because there were occasions where the oysters were ready to go, so they found their way to market. Well, I had no way of identifying the owner of these things. So, but But I did return the cage to someone else who was in the business. So
Nice.
that was one of my finds. And I did find a small boat last year. It was totaled, though, and I'm rebuilding it in my backyard. But I found it was crushed up against the rocks, and it was just a dinghy. But I'm really pleased to have found it because, I'll turn it into something good, useful. Otherwise, where is it going to go? Where do boats go? I think they crushed them, they put them in the landfill.
Hey, you find it on the beach, it's yours. That's salvaged it.
We've already talked about this in one other episode, however, because the rules, the law of fines, you're talking about law of fines, and we've talked about this, but there's been an occasion where the law of fines has been suspended in this community because the police department is, vigilant about people taking other people's stuff.
Right.
And they give him a chance to find it, I guess, which was nice. I thought that was nice. I did put both of the kayaks back.
So there's no tradition of wreckers in Katunquit. Sorry, I'm so bad at the pronunciation.
Oh yeah.
The record. Nobody in the old times used to go with lights to lure boats up to their destruction.
Wreckers.
Oh yeah,
Wreckers.
that was a ready.
Did that ever happen in Katunquit?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
Not in the modern day, of course, but we were talking about that with JC, I think, and JC suggested that there were fires that the
that's true.
native population would make to guide boats maybe onto the rocks, right? I think the coolest thing I ever found was a rusted chain that had rusted to the degree that it has, I should say, rock minerals and all encrusted together, and now I have it hanging.
And it held up? It didn't crumble on you?
I have fixed it with some special fixative, and it's now a sculpture in my yard. It's really a wild-looking thing. So, yeah, there are things you can find. I found about 5 or 6 large monkfish one time. Yeah, and they were just circling. So a dragger had pulled them up or something, and they were living, but they were easy to get with a net. So I brought those home and ate the tails. But I'm sure you have other things in that special box, or other things that you might remember.
There are artifacts that come off of wrecks that, if you don't get the salts out of them, will fall to pieces. But wreck divers have a trick for getting the salts out. Is like if you find some piece of pottery or something, is you put it in a bag and you hang it in your toilet tank for about 6 months. Because every time you flush, you're getting fresh water through there.
And you're not using as much water in your toilet.
And you're flushing,
so
that's
saving.
true.
Benefit.
It's saving.
So this is a little funky. And Ashlyn will tell you that I'm kind of obsessed with mermaids' purses. I've done sculptures of them, and I brought...
Are you a sculptor?
Well, I do, sir.
She is.
I do art.
She's a sculptor.
I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. So there are, normally around here when we think of mermaids' purses, we think of the skates egg cases, which are those black capsules that have got 2 horns on either end.
Yes.
And I'm kind of obsessed with them because when I was a little girl, I thought they were seaweed floats. But it turns out, when I found out that they were actually not vegetable but animal, and not only that, vertebrate, I was like, mind blown. So there are 3 species of these that are common around here, and I've got written down like what they are. But that one is the little skate, and that's very, very common. And this one is...
It looks a little bit like Hans Brinker's skate, doesn't it?
I wet them so they'd be softened up a bit, because otherwise I was afraid they'd break.
Have they been in the toilet?
No,
Okay,
no.
good. I like them. They're all lovely.
But I'm looking at those and going, why do they call them purses? Like, what are they thinking of? So this one's a little beat, and I brought it. I've only ever found 3 of these in the state, and I brought this one, even though it's the most battered one, because I actually found it here in Martin's Hollow. And you can see they're like little tassels. But that is a shark egg case. It's a small cat. It's called the chain cat shark. And they have a pretty wide range. They go from Massachusetts and all the way down, I think, to Guatemala, kind of hugging the coastline. They're not in the Caribbean. They're not in the Bahamas.
Did this one survive?
Yeah, that's an egg case. Well, actually, no, I don't think it did. I think the little baby shark actually died in that one, because usually they're clear and they look like celluloid. But these, so I saw a picture of a flapper in the 1920s, a flapper's purse that the flapper would have worn to like a dance hall or something.
Yeah.
And it had that kind of shape and was made of celluloid, of this, celluloid is that early plastic of butterscotch color, and had all kinds of tassels.
So you think that's where the
tassels
name
on the bottom of it, and it's like, this is the mermaid's purse. This is mermaid. That doesn't look like any,
that looks like a beetle with two pinchers.
Yeah, we have to describe things a lot
All
more.
right, so the mermaid's purse are those things that you find on the beach very commonly. Sometimes they're incredibly abundant. They're black as a general rule. They're hollow. They're like little packets, and depending on the species, they go from between, the body part will be between 1 and 2 inches long, and then it has two horns coming out.
It's kind of like a rectangular dumpling.
Yeah.
With horns on either side.
The devil's ravioli.
Oh, that's perfect. Perfect description of that item. So there's anything from the Titanic in that box?
No, it's just, I don't know if it's the Titanic. It's the Queen Mary. But it's, some old boat.
It's Titanic-like, and the box is quite old. The tin box, you don't see those too often anymore. So we're talking here with Ellen and Serenity, and she's providing these beautiful items for us to peruse and to discuss. There are things that people find. We tragically lost a member of my crew, but not to any the boat didn't sink or anything, but he passed away while swimming, and we for a week I was. Because we worked as fishermen with these long poles and rakes and stuff, and I was just concerned that we were going to find him, and one of our friends found him. It was awful. We were very young, in our early 20s, so it's a sad. But remember him and all that he did for us in our boat, and we did. Worked together for quite a bit. That was a tragic loss. So people find things, even bodies and bones and things like that while they're fishing. Or things that come up on the shore. It's just...
found a human skull once.
Did you find?
It wasn't on this island. Is it not couched? I not talk about it.
Well, you can talk about other islands.
This was down the Bahamas in Eleuthera.
Oh.
And
you have to trade that one in. You have to turn it in, right?
Well, I put it back. I didn't see. Well, first I thought, I've watched too much TV. I thought there's been a murder. And
yes. Well, there may have.
Out, no. I think it's possible. Anything's possible. I think it's unlikely. The cemeteries are built. I mean, Eleuthera is it's not a mountain. The Bahamas aren't mountains. They're basically like hard sandbars, so that they're not very high above sea level. And there was an old cemetery right by the water.
Oh, that'll do it.
And that's, but I mean, I went down, I thought it was a turtle skull or something, and I pulled it up, and I just about tail walked out of the water like Flipper. It's like, oh my
that'll
God.
do it. Yeah, I've been in those situations where something even resembled a skull like that, and I'm out of the water right away. What about you? Did you find anything, Ashlyn?
I haven't found, on Cattonquid, I haven't found anything really that amazing. I mean, I've seen, dead dolphin and that, and on Aquidneck, remember that whale that washed up on Second Beach?
Yes.
When your kids would have been maybe not even born, but
What species?
it was
Right.
definitely a baleen whale. Was it a right whale?
Yes. I could be wrong.
Or a humpy?
No, I don't think it was a humpback. It was definitely a baleen whale. And of course we all took our little kids, and our friend's daughter was subsequently traumatized.
But I don't know. It's you want to say it's sad, but animals die naturally and they wash up, and I'm always fascinated.
I thought the
I
whole
always
thing was so cool. The Mystic Aquarium guys came and they were using the old, I don't even know what that tool is called, that the whalers used,
a flensing knife or
like on a long pole with a
Oh, yeah.
spade kind of blade on it to cut this thing open. I thought it was really interesting.
I would have been fascinated. I haven't seen one. I did see once going out to Block, like off Point Judith. I was out in a boat with friends and saw a whale.
Just
Yeah.
floating or?
No, it was
alive.
swimming along.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
yeah.
they
Well,
were-
that's
It was
always
one of those
cool.
We went in to swim in the Great Salt Pond, and seals were popping their heads up. And then we came out, and it was after Hurricane Larry, like a week, and a school of dolphins crossed the bow. And then, I'm going to guess it's a right because I don't think it was big enough to be a gray. And I have seen humpbacks in Hawaii, so I think I would recognize it somehow. But
There were belugas here.
Really?
In the bay. Yeah.
when?
Was it last year?
2016.
Oh, okay, that was.
I didn't know there. I think there was also a beluga hanging around last year.
Good news. That's great.
That's cool.
So the things that you find as you pass or around this island.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of. Of course, you always find everybody's looking for beach glass. That's a super popular thing to pick up.
Beach glass for me is bycatch. I'm not necessarily looking for it, but in
Ellen is now fumbling through her pocketbook here, and she's going to come up with something.
In Rat Tail Cove, which is a good place because it's kind of a deep cove with sort of high walls that contains cobble to roll around. I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, that cove was interesting. I've found a lot of very interesting sea glass there.
And people seed. But this is another thing where there were little peninsula type things, and the wave washed this thing up at my feet. Happily didn't land on it. So this is, it's about the size of somewhere between smaller than an orange, but about the size of a small tangerine. And it's a paperweight, which would have been tacky and boring and ugly before the sea got at it. But it's like, it has some red stuff in the middle that you can't clearly see. They're probably flowers and all. Flower shapes. But the texture of it is like an icy snowball. And there are places, so I don't know if you know this, like when glass fractures, the cleavage is such you get a curved fracture. They call it a conchoidal fracture, like a seashell. So it has these beautiful, it almost looks like the Death Star, but they're little windows into what goes on inside it. So that's my favorite.
I like that you suggested that it's far more interesting as a piece of glass that's been pounded by the ocean.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And it's not beautifully smooth at all. It's like you pick it up and you could scratch yourself with it.
I'm going to get a few.
You could use it
globes
for
and toss them.
exfoliating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works. That's very nice. Another nice item from the bag, the magic bag. She has a magic bag here, and she brings out the things from the magic bag. And she's putting that one back in a very
So when I
Carefully.
Carefully.
When I was living here, I did something that I did. So if you put glass in to turn it into sea glass, that's called seeding. And I seeded Rat Tail Cove pretty aggressively because I had a bucket full of marbles that I'd picked up at Goodwill and things over the years. And I thought, this will be fun. They'll come up gradually and get them. And I think, over the course of the next month or so, I probably got like a pint worth of my big bucket back. But I'll never do it again because then word got out and then people started showing up with rakes. And then, part of what I love about a beach is the natural distribution of the sediments by the waves. It's one of the things that's so frustrating. I love Second Beach, but we've only got a few more days and they won't be grooming the beach. I like to have things washed up naturally, so you're not going to catch me seeding again.
That's such an important point. Let's leave these places natural as possible. Why not? We've done enough destruction already. Okay, so those are topics that you might want to explore if you're visiting Cotuncquit. So if you're in Oklahoma and you're coming out this way, you could enjoy Rat Tail Hollow and maybe even find one of Ellen Serenity's marbles.
Because she's
she's
losing
lost them.
I have lost my marbles.
I don't think that's the case. I want you to know that at any point in the next part of this production, just jump in anytime you're feeling it.
Well, I've got one more thing in my bag.
Okay, what do you have in the bag?
I got a rock.
She has a rock.
Yes, it's bigger than a pebble. It's a cobble, but it is the most beautiful cobble. I'm going to leave it to you to try and describe that thing because I think it's like a sculpture.
It is. It has structure to it. It has it's smooth to touch. It has striations that are running through it, and they're very, they hold in like a almost symmetric manner on the edges too. So there's the different color rock running through this. There's a lighter colored rock and this darker colored rock running through this piece, and it has the look of almost like a fin. It's lovely. And it has a lot of beauty to it. I'm glad that you love it.
I think there was a rifting event or something. So you have the lines from the sedimentary layers going down, but then you have a big crack.
Mm-hmm.
So and when the crack happened, I think the angle kind of shifted. So you have one of these little moments. It's kind of neat to have a piece. Sometimes you'll see this in big rock faces, but to have one you can take
That you can put in your hand, yeah.
But I just think it's sculpture. It's really lovely.
Mm-hmm.
I need to spend a little more time with you at Rat Tail Hollow. Let's bring some of that stuff home.
That wasn't Rat Tail. That was Martin.
Oh.
On the other side, but they're all part of the rat. They're on either side of, if you can imagine the rat where the tail is attaching to the body in the island. So it's like in the top of that narrowing and in the bottom of it.
And that part of the island is geologically different than the north end of the island.
Yes. It's older, isn't it?
That's what I've been told.
I have read that, I think it's called Lion's Head, that's between the tip of the rat tail and the rat hollow or whatever. There are 3 different species of trilobites there. I would go out of my mind, but I can't figure out how to work my way through all the brush and thickets and ticks.
And poison ivy.
There. I've tried climbing in, like going all the way out from the cove. I can't do it. I've tried climbing back. I've tried going, paddling. I can't access it. So.
Now, my neighbor, who was so important to me, he was a fisherman, and I told this story too before, but there's this fella, as a young man, they lived on lighthouses. His father was a lighthouse keeper. So they were in Maine at one point, and they discovered that people for centuries, at least 2 centuries, it was a lover's site where they would look out and they would toss coins in to the ocean right there. So it was virtually inaccessible, but these 2 kids, what a coin collection. They had coins from the colonial era.
Wow.
See, that's what I'm always looking for when I'm on the beach, looking for some doubloons.
Yes.
Doubloons. Well, the problem with gold is it's heavy.
Mm. But you never know. After a big storm, suddenly all these things are unearthed.
It's true.
So true. Oh, I'd like to mention my mother's birthday was August 25th. That's 3 days ago. She passed away in 2018. She was born on August 25th, 1929, and she died on August 25th, 2018. So
pretty impressive.
So shout out to Mom and her wonderful approach with all of us. We were blessed to have a good mom that took care of us. And what a funny lady. Oh, you remind me quite a lot of her. She's very gregarious, outgoing, always willing to get in and have a party. I remember it was about a week before she died, and I said, "Do you want to go for dinner?" And she said, "Oh, of course." It was everything I could do to get her in the truck and bring her to the dinner. And then they came over and said, "Do you want to have a drink?" She said, "Of course." So what a great lady. So we miss her. I was told about Jamie Foxx's pickleball parties. Want to hear more about this? Apparently, he's having pickleball parties. I haven't got an invitation.
He's got a 3-court pickleball complex.
Jamie, if you're out there and you're listening, Katunkwit Chronicles, please invite me. I'll get myself out to L.A. I love to play pickleball, and I love a party. So
I was very disappointed to learn that there were no actual pickles involved with pickleball. I think I could get down with it if there were pickles.
I was thinking of having a pickleball party that only involved pickled stuff. So pickled herring, pickled pickles, all kinds of pickling related stuff.
Everybody could bring a pickled item to share.
True, and then play pickleball. So that's an idea, but we'll go on from there.
I got a digression. It's black trumpet mushroom season because I don't just hunt in the. I just don't just look for stuff on the beach. I look in the woods, and not so much pickling them, but I got a bunch and I cooked them up to eat. But now I realize I need to find another batch because I put them in vodka.
Oh.
And you can get pickled by drinking that, but it's delicious.
Yeah, I can attest to this because Ellen gave me a little jar and I cooked them up with some pasta and a little wine and actually a touch of soy sauce.
Is that a vodka sauce? No. But can you make vodka sauce and put them in? That'll be so good.
Black trumpets you can put in anything.
Oh, I don't know anything about these trumpets. I've been getting the,
Hen of the Woods?
Yeah.
Yeah, you gave me some of those too.
Those are good. And then the other one, the chicken of the woods too.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? The red one?
There's Latoporus cincinnatus and Latoporus sulphurus. So if it has the yellow on the bottom, it's the sulphurus. Those are good, but you need to have it while it's still kind of moist. Sometimes you just take the grind tip because otherwise it's like eating balsa wood.
Oh, it's nowhere near. I've got a spot for those, boy, in the golf course. But I don't like to eat anything from a golf course.
No,
they put a lot of poison on stuff, right?
There was a flush of shaggy manes, which are delicious, out at Fort Getty again. And I watched it a whole summer. It's like, but they had wood chips brought in. I didn't know if there was any. I had never in my life seen so many shaggy manes, and they are.
Oh, over in the west park over there.
Yeah.
West,
they're beautiful.
West Park. Yeah.
And they're delicious, but you have to get those are the ones that liquefy to go to just kind of like black ink. So you rush them home, you put them in a cookie sheet, you freeze them hard, and then throw them in a bag and then cook them.
Of course, we can't advocate for people to go out and, on this program, to go out and pick mushrooms without some...
But join a mushroom club. Go hang out with mycologists, learn before you do it, but...
Yeah.
Actually, you know what?
Lose your marbles and go out.
Don't do it at all. I want them all.
Because Ellen wants to eat them all.
I want them all.
I was noting that this is probably the last thing we're going to do about mushrooms, but
Sorry.
I was noting that these folks in Bulgaria have a very short summer span and very little light the rest of the year, and they live in between the mountains. And one of the shortages that they have is vitamin D, so they pick mushrooms, they put them in the sun, and the sun is absorbed by the mushroom pieces, and they eat them, and then...
And they get their vitamin D from the mushrooms.
And one more shout out to my dog, Clouseau, who had 5 teeth removed, and he's suffering at home now. But I gave him some medicine, so he's going to be fine. We're going to do some trumpets and some waves. There's the wave that you wait for, right? Those types of short waves. That was a short, or is that a short wave or a long wave?
Well, it's height to length relative.
Okay. Well, we don't get too technical on this show, but that was a wave. We have a commercial break time, so I'm going to do some commercials here for the people that are supporting us. And Katunkwit Chronicles is brought to you by Endo's Line Shop, where we put the bitter in the bitter end. Our expert linesmiths will customize your dock lines, anchor lines, and even your braided lobster pot lines to your specifications and satisfaction. As Endo always says, when Endo makes your lines, you'll never go back to conventional line shops. At Endo's, it's the end of the line. Shop no more. Shop Endo's Lines, Valley Street, Katunkwit. And you'll recognize Endo there'll be a short story that includes a little Endo in there. So we're supporting our sponsors in multiple ways. Sunquest oysters are grown in the tidal areas just yards from Katunkwit. And we grow some buttes, says owner and operator Milo Calavius. When oysters are your sudden desire, call Milo at Sunquest Oysters for your fix. Whether it be the night of your engagement, a bridal shower, baby shower, or even on the night of the bachelor's party, Sunquest Oysters delivers the oysters that rev the engines. Milo says, my oysters work better and more naturally than the purple pills. They're high in protein, low in calories, and full of minerals. Great for a hangover. When ordering oysters, order Sunquest Oysters and get your sexy on. We're sponsored this week by Belleville Cab. Really happy to have Belleville along. Great idea here. Belleville Cab provides cab rides to all of Katunkwit's favorite tourist spots as we drive a continuous loop for 12 hours daily, picking up at the landing at West Ferry Deli, Katunkwit Market and Liquor Store, Cove Beach, Rat Tail Hollow, East Ferry Junction, and the Katunkwit Cafe, including Oak Restaurant and the Bay View. We provide handicapped access, and we're fully insured. Our driver, Eddie, provides our riders with a freewheeling, jaw-dropping sermon as he circles the island, filled with the information you need to truly enjoy the island during your vacation. Pay a one-time daily fee of $12, and you can ride all day long. Belleville Cab. Try it. You'll like it. We're also sponsored by these wonderful people. The Katunkwit Garden Club would like to remind you to be nice to your plants, and they will be nice to you. The Katunkwit Garden Club's upcoming end-of-the-year plant sale is Saturday at the fire station. Bring your mangy plants for rehabilitation, and the CGC, the Katunkwit Garden Club, will send you home with a completely refurbished, re-energized plant of your own, with a complete set of instructions as to how to maintain the health of your plant. Bring a plant, get a plant. Wasn't that a pleasant idea? Who had that idea? I wonder. That's really wonderful. All right, we're also sponsored this week. Exciting Sunburst Energy reminds you to get your energy-efficient electric splits and then come to Sunburst for a free quote on solar panels. Owner Sam Knight says, it seems all backwards that one has to get their electric power mechanicals before they hook into the energy of the sun's rays. But that's the way the government asks us to proceed. With Sunburst, we'll amplify the quality of your life, cool your home through the sun's rays in the summer, dehumidify your home year-round, and heat your home in the winter, all through the ever-increasing sun's rays. Hell, we'll guarantee your system will produce more electricity than you use. Keeping the moisture out of your home is a must, so call Sunburst. And we're also sponsored by Katunkwit Scouts of America. Welcomes all to become Scouts. No longer a pre-paramilitary organization bent on marching in chain of command, the Katunkwit Scouts of America provides participants with a fully customized scouting experience, self-designed to meet the individual's needs and desires. Our algorithmic equations, aided by AI, assist in the scouting experience from junior scouts to fully actualized scouts. To become a fully actualized scout, Katunkwit Scouts of America provides therapeutic counseling sessions, total immersion, thought therapy, and a career derivation projection tools to help traverse the next stages in a scout's life. No more trail cutting and cookie sales. No more car washes and rock wall building. With Katunkwit Scouts of America, a participant can work on their scouting experience completely virtually. Join Katunkwit Scouting today. It'll be the most inclusive experience of your lifetime.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some aspects of scouting that certainly could have been improved, but a virtual scouting experience, who wants that?
I'm not down with letting go of the cookies. I am not down with letting go of the cookies. The cookies are kind of essential.
Cookies are essential. Essential. That's it. I think that's something that one of our sponsors might take on. Cookies are essential. We maybe have a cookie sponsor next week. We have a little section here we call listener mail, and it seems the same person continually writes to us, which is intriguing and wonderful. And we probably wouldn't utter any of these words unless they were positive. So, but no, we would. If you, by the way, if you're out there, you want to send us a note. I forgot the email address, but send it to us. I think it's katunquitchronicles@gmail.com. And we'd love you to send a note. And Dave writes, as one Katunquit Islander to another, I'd like to recommend the Chronicles podcast. James and Ashland make a good team. The ads segment in episode 7 had me laughing, and I got a lot from the stories. A favorite was about a mad seaplane pilot fisherman taking some kids for a ride on their date on the 4th of July. I recently spoke to a mutual friend of ours, Emma, a non-islander, unfortunately, about the podcast, and we were wondering if we could all together appear together as guests on the CC. Hope your summer is going well and the writing is flowing. Best, Dave. Nice. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, they can come on, right?
We have a woman that just looks for stuff on the shore. So I mean, and sculpts once in a while. We welcome everybody. Just joking. I'm not trying to minimize what
The
you've
bar
done.
is not high. No higher than high tide.
As we were arriving here, you and I were, and putting all these technical stuffs together, and we were talking. You were reciting some gibberish. What was that?
The bird one?
Yeah.
This I can't remember the name of the fellow writer, but it was from a children's book of poetry that I used to read to my kid when he was little. So that's why the wily gannet sits on granite, thus avoiding germs, and so this bird must feast on fish, for gannet has no worms.
Ah,
Lovely.
nice. I like it. It's fun because it's senseless, which is always
And somewhat
favorite.
ties into the sorts of things we were talking about.
I actually on first or second beach, I actually saw a gannet washed up last year.
I thought that was a fake word.
No, they're pretty impressive, big really big, much bigger than a seagull, and they have like spectacles and all. And I was kind of jumping up and down. Oh, look, it's a gannet. It's the way I do, and people walking by are like, it's a seagull. What are you talking about? But no, it's good. Google them sometime. They're cool looking.
Midwinter, the brant show up.
Yeah, they look a little bit like Canada geese.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
I
do.
saw
They're
them
smaller though.
in Rat Tail Cove.
Yes, I saw them too. Not there, in Miller's Cove, and I saw them with my daughter, and then we were playing Scrabble. You can play Scrabble on your phone now with your daughters that are in New York, and I used that word brant, and she didn't know what it meant. So we looked it up. Of course, I was right about that. I know what a brant is.
You can spring gannet on her next time if she's not already clued in from.
Is that two N's?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's 2 N's.
All right, so I have a...
yeah, Jamie,
sorry.
you have a story for us.
I have a story. It's called The Lines That Bind. All right, so, I promised a little visit from Endo. However, this is not a complete story. This is the first of 3. So we're going to try to entice the audience to listen.
Are you serializing these?
And we're serializing
things?
this
Yeah.
series. But I think it works almost as a short story on its own, I hope. the lines that bind. And once again, his story is quite fresh. So you can criticize it, please, all of this stuff. And stop me to say, hold on, wait a minute.
How was that possible?
The lines that bind. It's May 1st, May Day. The daffodil blossoms turn brown and find their way to the soil to become compost. The only traffic light in Kentucket, a blinking red light on the corner of Kentucket, Maine, and South Road, has traffic backed up in front of the post office 3 cars deep. It's surely the first sign of summer as the part-time snowbirds and weekend New Yorkers return to Kentucket Island. Stuart Willett notes the change in size and shakes his head. He thought, seems that every year the number of newbies in town increases. He hardly knows his neighbors now. The house on the corner sold for $2.4 million, was newly renovated by Stuart's friend Brenner Silverson when he lived there before the divorce, and was promptly torn down by the buyers to build anew. He remembered Brenner's words after the divorce. She can find someone else to cut the hedge. Brenner always kept a perfect privet hedge. The new owners cut the hedge and had a stone wall built that's worth more than a lot of houses on the mainland. Stuart arrived in Kentucket in the mid-'80s aboard an offshore lobster boat named Crooked Claw after the 80-foot boat developed pump problems 50 miles out. They originally came to Newport, but couldn't find dockage and eventually found a space on the end of a dock at the Kentucket Marine main dock, causing a complete shit show for the rich yacht owners on the dock. Stuart was a deckhand on the boat, and he recalls the smell of lobster bait extending well into town for the few days that Crooked Claw docked in town. He, by chance, met Shimon Coyote, a slender young woman with teal-colored eyes, at the Kentucket Cafe. Like a cliche, he really did miss the boat and ended up staying behind. Crooked Claw sunk near George's Banks, 200 miles offshore, with 6 crew members and the captain aboard. All were lost. Eventually, Stuart convinced Shimon and the Coyote family that he was marrying material. He bought a small 40-foot Novi hull lobster boat, started his business in the inshore lobstering, and bought a house. He bought the house before buying a house in Kentucky required 2 people to have a salaries exceeding $200,000 a year. When lobstering dropped off precipitously from warming water temperatures 15 years back, Stuart shifted his attention to the growing of oysters. A lot of learning was trial and error. His first oyster-growing devices sat on the bottom and collected seaweed and growth of all types. He was forced to power wash the oyster cages perpetually. He recently shifted to floating gear, which requires far less maintenance because the floating qualities of the cages and the rocking of the oysters and the waves remove much of the accumulating growth. But more importantly, the oyster shell edges would crack slightly, thus causing the oyster to cup slightly, creating a spoon-like oyster shell, perfect for hoisting and slurping raw oysters into willing customers' mouths and gullets. Stuart waits his turn at the light. It's a shit show at this blinking red light because not many people know the rules. The rule is that a car stop begins the move forward through the light and all those proceed while taking turns in counterclockwise fashion. New York drivers have another approach, but which involves some sort of impulsive yet intuitive understanding of when to go, which, as Stuart can understand, is determined as whenever they come to the blinking light, it's their turn, and all the others can go after they have passed through the light. Stuart's is tired of waiting as he has 6 new floating cages in the back of his pickup truck and placed precariously and loosely in the back. He was only going to the dock at the park on the west side of the island. He rarely tied anything down for short island trips, so Stuart swings into the post office parking lot and proceeds over the speed bumps near the mailbox. He makes it over the first bump without any loss as he looks at his side mirrors, but when he clears the second bump, the last cage jumps over the tailgate, landing in the parking lot and skidding beneath a mail truck. Stewart gets out quickly, scoop up the cage and tosses it aggressively on top, throws a line over it all, and then ties it off. A postal worker standing on the dock, Stewart recognized from considerable time frequenting the only fisherman's bar in town, the Kentucky Cafe, points and laughs at Stewart. Stewart glares at him, and the man stops laughing. So Stewart's plan is to deliver the cages to the dock, pick up some braided dock lines from Endo's Line Company on Valley Street, set up his dock lines at the dock, and go to the dump to get rid of the old lines. Well, at Endo's, he meets Maisie Templeton, a deckhand on Sean Pedant's gill net boat. Stewart had spent a few days on board Pedant's boat, but he couldn't stand seeing the fish kill each time the overnight net, set the day before, would produce. Pedant would take the fish that the government permitted that he catch, and then he forced to pitch dead 30-pound striped bass over the side. It was more than Stewart could stomach. He never went aboard again, but Maisie took over the job, and now a partner with Pedant. She, too, was at Endo's to pick up dock lines. Endo charged a fortune for dock lines, but he's the only show in town, so Stewart puts up with it. It used to be that Endo's prices were competitive, but now that these high-priced yachts fill the harbor, Endo gave up poverty and low prices. He owns 3 rental homes in town and lives in a 4th. Still working with Pedant, Stewart asks Maisie. No choice. He cut me in on the boat and gear for cheap. It was 2 years ago when there wasn't any fish. Too hot. Water was too warm. Even the bluefish skipped Rhode Island Sound. Maisie expresses while sliding a credit card in the card reader and signing off. Been okay since? He asks. Okay, not killing it. Bluefish are around, but there's so many tuna out there cutting up the gear and chasing the fish around. It ain't steady. Maisie says while lifting her suspenders slightly to boost her ample chest. Stewart notices and almost stares. Maisie backs away, backs away from Stewart, and his eyes find their way to her boots and then his own boots, ashamedly. When he looks up, Maisie has a curious look as she looks at Stewart's rumpled hair, his half-beard and rugged, sinewy arms with a single tattoo of the cat in the hat on his forearm. Maisie isn't tall, but she's strong, and her hair bounces when she walks. Stewart likes her because her smile always lifts everyone around her. Endo hands her the rope, and she smiles at him. Miss Maisie, I give you 5% of my regular price. I hear you on the boat with Pedant. If it's him, I ask 5% over, so you come and pick up every time. Endo reveals with a smile while not being very coy about his interest in Maisie Templeton. What about my friend here? He's cool, Maisie says, her eyelids beating a visual song of price reduction and fairness as she points at Stewart, while Stewart wonders why. Stewart smiles and says, Old Endo's gonna stick it to me, Maisie, like he always does. You don't use that kind of language around the lady, Endo launches as his words at Stewart as if triggered. It's cool, Maisie says again. Endo calms down and backs away from the counter, throwing Stewart's lines across the oak countertop. 86 of 50 cash only, Endo announces. But you took a credit card from her, Stewart says, while shuffling through his wallet, releasing crumpled 1s and 20s, the result of last night's visit to the Kentucky Cafe. When Stewart drinks, he gets loose with his money. His wife, Shimon, has a deal with him that any money she finds in his pants after they hit the laundry basket is hers. It's certainly a fair deal, given that she does his laundry separately from hers to concentrate the stink of oyster refuse and seaweed in his clothing only. She has to use detergents to lift the stink from the clothing. So he pulls $68 from his wallet and what's left in his pants from the night before and flattens the bills on the counter. It's all I have. Can you cash, Endo? $75. Can you spot me this time or take a card? Stewart asks. I got this, Maisie says, her hand lifting a $10 bill from her pant pockets faster than anyone could expect and slamming it down on the counter atop the bills. No, that's not cool, Maisie. Don't. 50 cents, still 50 cents, Endo says while pointing at the handwritten slip. She lifts 2 quarters from her pocket and flips it at Endo. One of the 2 coins rolls atop the counter, spins in a circle, and rumbles to a stop. All 3 stand in amazement as the coin seems to remain in motion longer than anyone could have expected. It rolls to a stop, and all 3 look up at the same time as Maisie shakes her head and says, "Wow." "I owe you," Stewart announces. You paid that debt a long time ago," Maisie says curiously. "What?" Stewart asks, equally curious. "You're all set," Maisie says as she hurries out the door. Stewart tried to remember why Maisie might have suggested he had given her something in the past. Endo looks annoyed at Stewart, and he notices, so he lifts the ropes, leaves the receipt errantly, and heaves the ropes into the truck. Then he returns for this receipt. "Can I have my receipt? I forgot it." "Yes, Endo." "I already threw it away. What do you want? What are you going to do with it anyway? You never paid no taxes," Endo says harshly. "Take your shit-ass comments and shove them up your ass," Stewart responds loudly as he spills the contents of the waste basket, finds his receipt, leaving the contents of the basket on the floor, and then leaves. "You get your line somewhere else. Don't come here no more," Endo screams. "I won't," Stewart yells back as he jumps in his truck, the truck backfiring as he speeds out of the parking lot, spitting clamshells against Endo's front door and on his loading dock. Endo hit a nerve again. It wasn't right what he said, but Stewart hadn't paid taxes in 3 years. He hadn't made enough to file and wouldn't have to pay, but he didn't want to pay an accountant to file his taxes. He hadn't the time to compile his receipts to prove he didn't make any money, so he blew it off. This procrastination follows him around and nicks at his psyche like a scab that's continually ripped from his back of his hand, and he knows the solution, but he doesn't have the money in his account to take it on. Why did she say I didn't owe her money? Stewart brain works overtime thinking of every interaction with Maisie over the years. He bought a beer or 2 for her in Pedant at the Tunquit Cafe, but he was also almost nothing. What does come to mind is the time Stewart let Maisie borrow a huge anchor and that Stewart uses as a decoration in his front yard. The anchor was from the 1800s and was used on whaling ships, so it's heavy and it's big and it rusted, but still useful. Maisie was working on rebuilding her 40-foot dragger-style boat that season at the bulkhead in her yard as her yard abutted the harbor. And when Hurricane Sandy was on her way up the coast, the boat was almost complete. So Maisie anchored her boat in Dutch Harbor, west over there, behind the dock, with Stewart's ancient anchor and plenty of warp, and she stayed aboard the boat during the storm to save her boat. Everyone told Maisie she was crazy to stay aboard her boat overnight during the storm, but she paid no attention to these pleas, including Stewart's insistence that she anchor off and stay on the land overnight. As it turns out, Maisie saved the boat from floating debris that would have smashed into her newly refurbished boat, likely sinking it. She spent the night dodging debris and parts of broken boats and floating docks all ripped from their spires. She returned the anchor to Stewart's front yard. Maisie Templeton had been considered a local legend in Katunkwit ever since. Stu was sure it was the anchor that prompted her ponying up the 1050, but he thinks that she might have looked at him a little differently, not in her usual reassured way that always put Stuart on his heels when he met her in town, but when they were in the line shop this time, he felt something weirdly different between them. Stuart wonders why she was smiling so much. He wonders if Maisie somehow thinks he's irresponsible and dangerous. Yes, after all, some women like a challenging, dangerous man. Maybe Maisie does, he thought almost aloud. Stuart likes for this brief moment thinking of himself as a dangerous and attractive man. A man Maisie Templeton might like, even love? He smiles as his truck backfires again, bringing him closer to the dump. He arrives at the dump, having lost his newfound confidence, and wonders if he should just jump into the pile of refuse, be carted off the Johnson's refuse pile, Rhode Island's highest point. But instead, he empties 2 barrels of polypropylene line that had sun damage. It was weakened sufficiently to become brittle and useless refuse, to be deposited with all the other discarded shit nobody wants. Not sure if he'd just become nearly useless to Katunkwit, his hometown. But maybe a woman like Maisie could bring him back, he thought. Stuart reverses the truck and drives away from the dump, feeling almost good about himself and almost attractive and free of at least a few of the old useless lines that had tethered him long enough.
Isn't Stuart married?
He is. That's not right.
Mm.
So maybe you could probably anticipate some things that might happen here in the next segment. What do you think? Which I haven't written the other two.
So you haven't written the other two?
No, this is a cereal. So
I think
I get a bowl of cereal and I write it.
For having, I mean, granted, I think he's being pretty sassy to customers. That he really shouldn't be to lose business.
You mean Endo?
Yeah, I just like he's sassy.
Already. He has his 4 houses and he lives in the 5th. He's all set.
It's a hobby.
It's a hobby.
Yeah, he's just trying to make some time with Maisie Templeton as well. So his interest is in her, not in selling lines.
So Endo isn't married.
I don't know about that. It doesn't
don't
matter.
know about that. Oh.
We could.
I think Endo's divorced.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Might be the end of the line for him. So we're
He's clearly just not having enough oysters.
good point. You could eliminate the purple pill. That's a good idea. So I was thinking maybe Ashlyn, will you write the second one?
The second part. Yeah, that would
It'd be shorter.
that would be a 90-degree turn on some of these things.
Yes. I know where you were kind of, oh no, he's going to do this trope. He's gonna make her into this temptress, and so you know me.
I wasn't thinking you. I was reading the story or listening to the story as if I wasn't evaluating the writer, as if it was true.
Well,
Island gossip, island stories.
yeah, there's truth in that. There's always this. It's really just the slice of life, right? This is happening right now at the different stores somewhere. Somebody's selling something, and I'm trying to amuse them.
Yeah, and I mean, people who work in like Endo's line shop don't meet a lot of people. I mean, that's a lot, largely sort of a distribution business.
In his line of business.
In his line of business.
Oh my goodness. And his experience with women probably not so much, right? So she's probably one
probably
of the only...
not that many women come in, and not very many customers come in anyway. So that's his whole day, right?
And she's a fishing boat captain, which is not. It's you don't often see the women fishing boat captains. There's more and more.
But isn't he shifting his business over to the yacht people? I mean, there's going
Yeah,
to be, you all the spinnaker sheets and different, they give a lot more ropes on those boats.
Yes, he doesn't.
And you can charge him 4 times as much.
Yeah,
True.
but then they just send some guy to come and pick it up, and there's no conversation. Just some young kid that works on the boat grabs it all and leaves.
Or someone who works at the marina.
But I do think
Tips for doing it.
the line, they do a lot of mail order business.
True. Yeah.
And distribution to other.
Well, you would know. Given your.
I have been in Endo's shop.
Yes. Yes, you have. Have you reason to purchase line? I've purchased line from Endo too.
Mm-hmm.
And my occasion was good. The price was high though. Tough price.
Well, I have to say that I thought the prices were pretty reasonable, but it may be because
you're buying
I'm a
it
woman.
over on the, maybe. That's right.
Why?
Ashland Gamoric, the
Well, I was
temptress.
thinking because you were getting stuff for sailboats as opposed to for fishing boats. So
I mean, that could be a factor too.
Yeah, let's think it was just for her natural beauty.
Went down with my brother, who's had his share of sailboats, to get cattle panels for the garden. We went to, I don't want to say the name of it, but there's a farming business down, and I'm not happy with the politics of the guy who owns the chain, so I'm not going to mention it. But we got these cattle panels, and they rent you a trailer to bring it back, and it's like $14 for half a day. And my brother's eyes were out on stalks, and he's like, if you're buying this stuff at like a chandlery, what they're charging, I'm like, yeah, well, farmers, they haven't got the money to throw around like the people at the yacht club. So yeah,
that's true.
So the fishermen don't have the money to waste. They got to be like the farmers. It's got to be functional as opposed to, if you've got your hootsy tootsie cabin cruiser, your $4 million Lamborghini cabin cruiser, you can spend a little bit more on your.
Or like the large sailing yacht that went down in the Med recently. Was that 160 feet long?
Is that one New Yorkers took down?
No. This is one that supposedly was hit by a waterspout. Yeah.
I think it was hit by a waterspout, and the hatches were open because it was, normal day. They weren't anticipating healing.
There's a lot of speculation. So
I'll break into song now and again. I'm going to do that right now. Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be clam diggers. Don't let them dig quahogs and drive them old trucks. Let them be doctors and lawyers and such. Clammers like smoky old pool rooms and clear upper bay mornings. Little warm puppies and Maisie Templeton. Okay, so that's where we're going to leave that. Do you have anything else to add?
No.
Oh, well, that was not nice.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're supposed to come up with something prophetic at the end.
I don't know.
I think it's
nothing
fine.
to say until I go find more stuff. I'll be poking through the rack.
Yeah, bring some more stuff over. We were likely to get a TV show before you know it, so then we'll be able to show these things.
We'll have a better way to show and tell.
No, I was kidding with you, of course, and we don't require anything of anybody at the end of the show. We do music, we do waves, and then we do a special exit. And when that door closes, we don't get back in here.
It's all over. Well, no one wants to come back in because it's so hot in here.
Oh, we do mention the heat.
About 90 degrees. But it's 90 degrees outside, too. So.
Sweatbox here. So, with that said, I bid you adieu. Adieu. Oh, be sure to to protect your dog's paws. It's very hot, and the pavement is exceptionally hot. And don't forget to recycle. You always recycle.